First, a few items of news. If there is one category under which Israel's biggest stories can be named, that category is war. Israel is openly at war with Hamas in Gaza, partly at war with the Houthis in Yemen, and is on the verge of open war with the puppet master of its enemies, the imams of the Islamic Republic of Iran. At the same time, it remains in the throes of narrative warfare with its many detractors, including collective and ongoing condemnation by the United Nations, the European Union, nonprofit NGOs, and countless ad hoc alliances coalesced on one thing: condemnation of the Jewish state for its necessary war against Hamas in Gaza, a terrorist organization that unleashed hell against innocent Israelis, slaughtering civilians with homicidal glee, taking about 250 hostages on 7 October 2023, and remains fully committed to the annihilation of Israel, no matter what the cost. All of these entities openly condemn Israel's self-defense against Hamas as quote-unquote genocide. Although patently untrue, Israel is losing this narrative war, as widespread condemnation of its self-defense provokes a rising tide of global anti-Semitism. In Gaza, 8 of Israel's young soldiers have been killed in just the past week. Last Friday, while attempting to enter a building in Bnei Suheila in southern Gaza, Hamas explosives were triggered, collapsing the building, killing Staff Sergeant Yoav Raver, Staff Sergeant Uri Yonatan Cohen, Sergeant Major Chen Gross, and Sergeant First Class Tom Rothstein. Why does the IDF attempt to enter these buildings? Why not flatten them from above? One day after these men were killed, Israeli veteran journalist Ron Ben-Ishai explained the problem to heartbroken Israelis. The war waged by the IDF in the Gaza Strip is a just and necessary war. As long as Hamas and about half a dozen armed Islamic jihadist organizations are still active in the Gaza Strip and can be restored, there will be no physical security for Israeli residents in the south, and they will not be able to live a normal life. This is the context in which we must see the fall of the 4 fighters yesterday morning. Their deaths were not in vain. They fell so that kidnapped Israelis might be returned, and especially so that the people of southern Israel could raise their children and make a living. Over the years, Gaza became a place of self-production and a vast warehouse site for weapons and explosives. Most importantly, it all happened underground. The branched tunnel array of all types excavated throughout the Strip made terrorist armies largely immune to the IDF's relative advantages in intelligence, accurate airfire, and armored combat teams. In spite of Israel's significant accomplishments since 7 October 2023, Hamas still has 70% of its weapons array and combat tunnels, which remain under every neighborhood in the Gaza Strip, with hundreds of rockets, RPGs, and explosives. Today, then, IDF fighters need to find and expose the shafts that lead to these tunnels and underground warehouses. Those well-camouflaged shafts are usually inside homes. Therefore, the IDF must assume that in every building, every home, there is a shaft or several shafts that lead to an entire underground world invisible from the surface. The simple way to minimize risk to soldiers' lives is to destroy buildings by bombing them from above or by using a bulldozer. The problem with this method is that after the structure collapses, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to find the shafts that are beneath it. Yes, if there is confidence that Hamas is ready to release all the hostages and allows for a ceasefire, we must grind our teeth and agree. But at the same time, we must also make sure that the underground network is destroyed. As long as the Israeli government fails to produce diplomatic agreement for the release of our hostages, it must continue to systematically destroy most of the tunnels under the Strip. The IDF will continue to develop methods to protect our soldiers. In this context, however, under no circumstances must they sacrifice the safety of our men and women for the sake of speed. On the narrative and public relations warfare front, Israel has recently allowed a U.S. company, GHE, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, to begin distribution of food inside Gaza. Why? Because aid distribution by the United Nations and its nonprofit allies has consistently been absconded by Hamas, then sold to Gazan citizens at exorbitant prices. In short, Hamas and its ideological allies have been using aid to finance their war against Israel. Although the GHF is still finding its feet, the biggest indicator of its effectiveness is outcries from the United Nations against it. I will not go into further detail about this now, but I encourage you to pray for the immediate and long-term success of this third-party effort to feed hungry civilians in Gaza without allowing its aid to finance Hamas. Meanwhile, every few days, the Houthis in Yemen continue launching missiles at Israel. Usually, the target area is in the center of the country, extending from the Dead Sea to Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. When missiles are launched, sirens sound in the target areas, sending millions of Israelis to shelter. Yes, the missiles are almost always intercepted, but there is a very real danger of falling debris from those interceptions. As for Iran, it continues to engage in talks with U.S. President Trump's team for a deal that would eliminate all uranium enrichment and any ability to produce nuclear weapons. Israelis tend to roll their eyes at this effort, certain of Tehran's unwavering commitment to its utter destruction. In fact, as talks continue, Iran has ordered from China thousands of tons of ingredients for new ballistic missiles. According to the Wall Street Journal, shipments of ammonium perchlorate are expected to reach Iran in coming months that could fuel hundreds of ballistic missiles. Some of the material would likely be sent to militias in the region aligned with Iran, including the Houthis in Yemen. At the same time, however, Israel has voluntarily put the brakes on any mission to destroy Iran's nuclear program. As if all these things were not enough, there is also a very real possibility that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government will collapse at any time, resulting in elections. The issue behind this possible collapse is the reality that an entire segment of Israel's population refuses to serve in the IDF, claiming that it protects the nation by studying Torah. This is maddening to the rest of the country, which is sacrificing its men and women to protect the nation's very existence. The big challenge in the midst of all these things is carrying on with life in the midst of ongoing trauma. Many here find ways to carry on, but many don't. How can their trauma be addressed? How can they move back to a place in which they are able to carry on with life? How can we help them do so? If you are not yet a subscriber to endtimes.com and would like to see the entirety of this important report and others like it, I urge you, subscribe right now at the website endtimes.com. For only $7 a month, you will receive a wealth of information and insight from Jimmy Evans, Mark Hitchcock, and experts from around the world, including Israelis living right here in the Jewish state. Do yourself a favor. Sign up today.